Hi, my name is Ben. I've got 10 years experience in talent acquisition, both on the corporate recruiting side and the agency side. And today we're gonna talk about behavioral interview questions. I'm gonna tell you what they are, why they're used, and I'm gonna show you how to beat them in your next interview. If you are new to the channel, welcome. And if you're not new to the channel, welcome back. Few things before we get started. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I always answer. Let's get started. So, a behavioral interview question. Let's start with what is it? And basically, it's a different way to get at some of the same information as you would with a typical interview question. But instead of saying, hey Ben, how do you deal with difficult coworkers? They say, Ben, tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult coworker, right? And they're basically, instead of looking for you to think through, how would I do this? They want an actual story. They want you to recall a time when you had to do that and share that with them. That is basically, in a nutshell, what a behavioral interview question is. So why are they asked? And they're asked for really three reasons. So the first, instead of you just making it up, they kind of require you to pull from experience. And interviewers like that, because anybody can sit there and go, well, I'd probably do this, but how useful is that? Would it not be more useful if you had to share a time when you did it previously? So that's the first one. The second one is they want to get an idea of what it would be like to work with you. A lot of these questions have examples about how you treat your coworkers and how you act in difficult situations or challenging situations or situations where you would do rise to the occasion. And when you tell specific stories from your background, it allows them to see what it would be like to work with you. And then the last, they get an idea of how you think, right? Because most of these times you are going to be presented with an issue. And when you are presented with an issue and you can share the specific solution you use, it allows people to kind of witness your thought process. That is valuable. That is not something you can easily ascertain in an interview unless you use a behavioral interview question. So the next thing, coming up with stories for them. When it comes to succeeding and successfully navigating behavioral interview questions, a lot of it comes down to you having the stories. Now think about it. If you don't prepare for these at all, and you're sitting there in your interview and they go, Ben, tell me about a time when, and you don't, off the top of your head, have that example, how are you going to feel? Well, you're probably gonna be like, I don't know. And you're gonna look stumped in an interview. And you're probably gonna have to sit there and hope something comes to the mind. The downside there is you might not have that perfect idea pop into your head, or you might have an inferior example, kind of come to mind. And you don't want that. When you're interviewing, you want the best example that showcases how you would be as an employee in that moment to come to your mind, instead of just whatever pops in there. So here are some examples of some interview questions, behavioral interview questions that you might encounter, just to kind of get the wheels turning here. So they might ask you, Ben, could you tell me about a time when you saved the day? Ben, can you tell me about a time that you mentored a coworker? Ben, can you tell me about a time where you had to handle competing deadlines? Ben, could you tell me about a time where you were able to save your company money? Ben, will you tell me about a time where you were able to eliminate waste or redundancy, right? You get the idea here. They're going to be asking about times where you accomplished some things and times when you dealt with difficult situations, time where you were a good teammate, etc. They're looking to identify positive behaviors or a lack thereof. So, how do you prepare? You're probably sitting here thinking, Ben, that was a lot of different questions and it covered a wide spectrum of situations. How in the world am I supposed to prepare for questions I don't know are coming and I don't know how many are going to come? And that's a great situation, but I've got an answer for you. So the key here is you want to come up with stories. And these are stories that ideally would help you answer multiple of these questions, right? So let's just say, for example, they ask you a question, Ben, can you tell me about a time where you had to manage competing deadlines? The reality is a story that satisfies that answer might also satisfy the answer, Ben, tell me about a time where you had to rise to the occasion, right? Because it's gonna be a story about you making a decision that ultimately ended positively. So here's what I tell people. I want you to look back at every single one of your jobs. And in every single one of your jobs, I want you to think about 1 to 3 times, depending on how many jobs you've had. If you've had like 2 jobs, think of 3. If you've had 11 jobs, 1 will probably suffice. But I want you to go back and I want you to think about different things you've done at your roles that you've been in, right? Different stories where you accomplished something significant. I always tell people, think about the most proud moment of every job you've been in where you had a project and you succeeded wildly, right? It was a great project. That is a story. And as you look at that story, I bet there are several things you can look back on and be like, I had to delegate. I had to deal with a teammate who wasn't bought in. I had to manage competing deadlines. There's all these things are gonna be in these stories. So here's what I would do. I would just take each job you're at, write 1 to 3 accomplishments, and then I would think about them, and I'd probably write out some of the bullet points of what occurred during each one of those. The next thing I want to talk about is, once you have these stories, how do you answer the questions? And my advice, and I've done videos on this in the past, and I'll link one below, but I'll talk about it here briefly, is use the STAR method. Now, the STAR method is a way for you to answer interview questions in an effective, streamlined way that is concise. One of the biggest mistakes interviewers make is, they go on for a long time. You ask them to answer an interview question, next thing you know, you're 3 minutes in and they're still talking about the example. They're not being efficient with their communication. And economy of words, the ability to communicate things effectively and efficiently, is really important. So anytime you're answering an interview question, you're actually also doing that. You're showing them that you're a good communicator. So here's what the STAR method is. It's an acronym: situation, task, action, result. So it allows you to kind of break your story into 4 parts that will give them a great idea of exactly what happened. So the first, situation. What was the situation you were in? 2, task. What was the task that you had to accomplish? 3, action. What was your specific action to successfully accomplish the task? And then R, result. What was the result? How did you come through? What did you do so that you ended up succeeding? And this is kind of how I always, if you have to tell a story and you're interviewing, use the STAR method. It allows you to go through, not leave any details out, and efficiently answer the interview question, which is really what you're trying to do here. The next thing I want to talk about is supercharging your answers, right? Because with any interview question, there's a way to answer it, but there's also a way to maximize your answer here. One of the things where, if you can do it, if there's the option to do it, and I've made videos in this in the past, I'm a big fan of it, it's quantify your impact, right? Hiring managers specifically love it when you give them an example that will allow them to imagine the benefit of you on their team, right? And if you can add numbers, if you can add finance to that, if you can show them the cost savings or profit or revenue, that only makes your story more powerful. I always advocate being specific here, but I'll use the easy, there's really 2 easy examples, and it's sales and quality. So let's say you're a quality engineer and you can say, I implemented some lean strategies that over the course of 12 months saved my company $200,000. That right there is quantifying your impact. In just about everything you do, you can give an example of how you took specific actions to make your company or your department more efficient. And if you can assign a cost savings or a number to that, it's only gonna make it more powerful. So I challenge you, as you're going through and you're thinking of these stories, to think if there was any way you could quantify your impact. It doesn't always have to be money. It is powerful if it's money, but just think of how you can share with the person interviewing you the end positive result of the thing you did. The last thing I want to talk about is remembering these stories and weaponizing them. Some of you are probably thinking about it and going, well, Ben, I've worked at 5 jobs. I just thought of 15 examples. How in the world am I supposed to remember them? Sometimes in an interview, Ben, I get nervous. By the way, in the comments, I'm going to link a video about ways you can be less nervous for your interview. But great question. How are you going to remember 15 stories? And here is my key. I think it's important to write them down. Whenever you write things down, it helps your brain remember them a little bit more, so it's powerful. But the other key, I would say, is title them, right? I want you to title them as if they're a scene or if they're a movie. As you go through, this is a time where I improved the process for interviewing candidates. I'm gonna call it Ben Improves Interview Process. And I would write that in bigger letters or bold or whatever so you can remember it a little bit better. And I want you to do that for every single one of these. Now, when you are doing a phone or a video interview like this, you have that list right here next to you. So that way, if you're going through, you can look down and reference it quickly and you can be like, yeah, that story, that's a great example here. Or if you are doing an in-person interview, right? It's the big one. It's the final interview. You're going on site. Have that list with you in your car. And right before you walk in and you sign your name and you put on the visitor sticker, I want you to read that paper and go through, and through each one of these, just remember your story. Think about it. Think about talking through it. Think about quantifying your impact. Think about how it could apply to different situations. And that's a great way to make sure that information is accessible to you when you need it. So there it is. That is everything. If you do all these things, you should be able to crush any behavioral interview. I appreciate you sticking around to the end. Again, if you found value in this, please like this video, please subscribe, share with any of your friends or colleagues who might benefit on it on social media. And there it is. Thank you for stopping by. Have a great day.